Let's talk about everything I read in February. Hi, I'm Olivia. This is AV Club where I talk about horror, lit fic, weird books, whatever I want to talk about. And today I'm talking about the 9 books that I read in February. About a week overdue, there was a surprise removing many trees from my yard, thanks to my landlord. Last week on what would have been my recording day was not possible. Chainsaws everywhere. But we make do. Again, I'll rank these from my least favorite to my most favorite of the month and talk about how I'm going on my reading goals. This month is a mix of 3 and 4 stars. So, kind of a mid to okay reading month. Nothing that's a new all time favorite, but also nothing that completely flopped. So, we have to celebrate that. My least favorite for this month, again, just a 3 star, not bad, but Dress Code Unlocking Fashion from the New Look to Millennial Pink by Veronique Hyland. This is a nonfiction that is all about the intersection of fashion and culture. And this author's claim to fame is that she actually coined the term millennial pink and kind of talks about her original thought process from that and how that has been co opted to be all kinds of like marketing things, that it was never meant to be like a marketing term, just something that was descriptive of something that was already being seen, but then just became like a beast of its own. If you like fashion writing, if you like essays, like I think that you will also be entertained by this as I was. But as it was just like on the cusp of something really great, as I was talking about fashion and its intersections with politics and the body and race and class and everything, I just wanted it to go just like a step further and be something that was like a little bit more, not academic, but a little bit more rigorous and less like pop nonfiction. Don't want to say BuzzFeedy writing, but just something that was like a little bit more, a little bit more follow through on like the political ideas that it was like putting forth. I do think that because of the marketing in this book and how it looks and how like girly pop millennial pink it looks, like maybe people will pick it up that wouldn't if it was like overtly more political and maybe be exposed to some leftist ideas and like thinking about fashion in a new way that's more than just like the clothes you put on your body, but that there is a whole process behind how these clothes are actually made. What is the original thought behind designing things in a certain way, and how is that taken? Maybe you'll be exposed to something new. But even now, as much as I was enjoying this nonfiction, like at the time, I don't have any like real takeaways from it to tell you like what were the individual stories, what were the individual examples for all of these things. So to me, that is kind of like a 3 star nonfiction. The next is Dollface by Lindy Ryan, which I did a full review of in a pink horror episode that I did, which was Dollface and How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates, which were 2 feminine coded horror books that I read close together. So I do have like a whole review on that. But Dollface was a kind of fun slasher. Like I thought that it did the slasher thing okay. It was switching between like these point of view slasher chapters, and our main character, who is a mom who has recently moved to a new city into the suburbs and immediately gets recruited into the PTA that is almost Stepford Wives-esque in how the women are presenting themselves. She has some unresolved trauma over the violent death of her mother in front of her. And yeah, she's dealing with her family while also dealing with the PTA, while also there's like a serial killer going around. It was just okay for me. Like I felt like it was entertaining. Like I really enjoyed the first fourth third, that I was really engaged with it. It was giving me something new. I loved the idea of like this weird PTA. And then the middle third was kind of a slog. It got kind of repetitive, like in how it was switching between just these PTA events and the slasher chapters. And then the final third like had, some kind of expected reveals, some kind of like reveals that didn't even feel like reveals because it just had already told you what was going on. But it did things in a different way and it was entertaining. I like a slasher. kind of a good palate cleanser type of thing. I felt like it had the meat to do more with it, but yeah, not bad by any means. A 3-star read for me. Then The Roommate by Diane Ho, which is part of the Nightmare Hall series, which is something that I've like unexpectedly started collecting. I found so many of these at the op shop lately, and I had started getting them before ever reading one and finding out if I liked it or not. But yeah, like a great palette cleanser type of book and very compact and small. I just had it in my purse, and if I was like waiting somewhere, I would just easily be able to get through 10 pages or so because it's huge text. Very simple type of writing, but actually a pretty interesting premise and pretty interesting in how it went about things. A more surprising end than I have experienced in most of the horror books that I've been reading recently. This is about 4 new roommates who have just moved into this dormitory nightmare hall at college at Salem University, and they are all a little bit weird. That that one of them has a weird past and has brought a knife to the dormitory, and also this nightmare hall is also kind of haunted in its own way. This is number 2 in the series, and apparently there was a violent death in the dormitory in number 1. So we'll have to track that one down, but you are kind of left guessing on like who is the weirdest roommate, because they're all acting like a little bit suspicious except for like our main character. We have like kind of like a main girl we're following who's kind of the everyman, the Jane Doe kind of stand-in character, and then she has like 3 roommates who are all a little bit shifty, like the party girl who pretends she's dumb but everyone knows she's like actually really smart, a girl who arrived late and seems to be making up lies, and then our main character is like starting to get these like weird calls, and she's also met this like guy who has like weird rumors flying about him, but she likes him. And yeah, I would recommend this if you're into, I mean, it's like not literary by any means. It's like the most straightforward writing, but like I was kind of gagged by the end. Like I did not see it coming. And yeah, just like a fun time. And I'm looking forward to the rest of the series. Who knows if they'll surprise me this much? But it's so interesting because it's such an interesting premise, and like the way the characters are written is so weird. I don't know if it like if it had more meat to it, if it was longer, if it was more fleshed out, would the characters then seem not as weird? Like it's is it only because we get these brief glimpses into these characters that it works so well? I don't know, but I just feel like it could have been a great standalone book as well because of like how weird it all is. But as it is, just a fun time. And of course, beautiful step back cover art. Love it. So keen to get to more from the Nightmare Hall series. Again, I talked about this in the pink horror review that I did, but How to Kill a Guy in 10 Days by Shailee Thompson. This was such a fun slasher. One of my favorite slashers that I've read, that I just feel like it does it well in adapting the idea of a slasher movie to a book. Not the most gruesome book I've ever read, not the most horrific. It is very like Valentine's Day girly pop theme, but it is like a blend of a slasher and a rom-com, and it's trying to do the tropes from both of those types of movies. So we have a main character who's obsessed with both of those types of movies, that she is doing a PhD thesis on that very topic, and her best friend wrangles her into a speed dating event that suddenly turns into a bloodbath, and everything's now a slasher movie. It was Valentine's Day, was all love, and the set dressing is like so beautiful, so Valentine's Day and cutesy. But now we have a slasher on our hands, and she had made connections with multiple men during the speed dating part of it. And so yeah, it has like that kind of tension because it's trying to do the tropes from both, that it wants to get to a happily ever after, but obviously something very evil is going on as well. There is a wonderful slasher mask in this. Our bad guy is called Heart Eyes. He has a mask with heart cutouts for eyes. I don't think this is like a must read for every horror reader, but if you're looking for a fun slasher and if you want it like a little bit cutesy and feminine, and also like I think that it does like talk about real issues that horrific issues that women face in terms of both the threat and reality of violence towards women if they spurn the advances of a man, then I think this does offer something different and something original, and I can't believe it hadn't been done yet. But my least favorite parts were the romance parts. I'm not a romance girly, so that's kind of expected, but I do think that it offered something different, and yeah, very fun. I don't usually get to have such cutesy girly pop book talky kind of looking books, so that's different too, and great time. Australian author. Catalina by Karla Cornejo Villavicencio. And this is about an undocumented young woman going to college. Her parents died whenever she was an infant, so she's being raised by her grandparents, who are also undocumented. And yeah, it's semi autobiographical in that it is about this like woman who's like one of the first, if not the first, of like undocumented students that are going to Harvard and dealing with the expectations both from her family and others about what that means, about how she's supposed to offer up her culture to others and what it means to herself, about being vulnerable with others, about not being perfect, about liking not perfect people. Maybe because it's set at a university and I'm just so primed by dark academia to expect kind of a twist or thriller or mystery element to it. That never came, which is totally okay. It was just a wonderful literary novel exploring like different types of relationships and complicated relationships, and I highly enjoyed this one. I think that if that sounds at all interesting to you, if you like a campus novel, then Catalina is a good one. Headshot by Rita Bullwinkel. This one was fascinating. It was about these young teenage girl boxers, and it takes place at this competition, and it's about these different girls facing up against each other, so you kind of get the repeatedness of being in their POV or getting part of their story as like it repeats them fighting each other. There's sisters, there's friends, there's strangers. They're coming from different walks of life, but it is so much about like how different all these girls are, about how insular this community is, about how this community about teenage girl boxing is like the world to them, and is something like they can be famous in this world, and that there's like not really even that much money in it, but that it's like the whole world to them, and everyone else knows literally nothing about it. And that's how it felt reading it too, is like getting to look bird's eye view on this community that is like so passionate, but you know nothing about, that you would never really, most people's lives would not intersect with this at all. And just kind of thinking about like all the different things that I know a lot about or that mean a lot to me and I spend a lot of time doing, that most people know nothing about, especially in like gaming communities and things like that. I love being exposed to these character studies of really passionate characters that have this like very unique interest. The girls' point of views were written brilliantly, and yeah, just loved the writing, thought it was great. Holy moly, this takes the cake for the most underrated book that I read this month. Holy Boy by Lee Heejoo, and I will have to put the translator up on here because I didn't write it down in my notes. But this novel is translated from Korean, and this book currently has under a 3-star on Goodreads, which people are just not picking up the right book. I just think that it hasn't met its reader yet. Holy Boy is about this K-pop idol who is abducted by this group of women who are all obsessed with him for different reasons and are coming at this with different skill sets and different reasons for doing what they did. And yeah, I mean, obviously they're all unhinged because they have abducted this young man. But it is so much about like how obsessed they are with him, but not actually about him. Like it's like everything that is like revolving around him, and it just like it feels like it should be this kind of like different thriller, like very actiony thriller. They have him like holed up in this like abandoned mansion, and it seems like there should be more of those like horror thriller elements going on, but it's so much more of this character study of who these women are and the aura the power of an aura surrounding a celebrity. And that way it reminds me a lot of The Sluts by Dennis Cooper, which is all about this like internet forums obsession with a young man who is like the most beautiful man and they want to do obscene things to him. This is a very disturbing book if you're not familiar, but very, very good. Holy Boy reminds me of that. Like, it's so much about this obsession, but it's not even really about that guy. It's like an invented guy in their head that they're actually obsessed with. So I just thought it was written brilliantly and I was like very consumed with it. And I love that type of book. Or like Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. It's not so much about Rebecca, it's like Rebecca's aura and how it is unhinging these people around Manderley. So yeah, I need more book recs in that vein because it does a lot for me. But Holy Boy, and a lot about Korean culture, especially its intersection with capitalism in there as well. Just a very interesting book, and I think people are just looking at it with different expectations than the type of book it actually is. So yeah, it is about a K-pop idol, but it's not that K-poppy, and it's kind of a thriller, I guess, but not really that thrillerish. It's more so if you want kind of like that weird, disturbing book, I think. Art Thief by Michael Finkel. I haven't heard anyone talk about this book directly, I don't think, but the waitlist at the library for the audiobook was like very long, so I do feel like it's a pretty popular book, but this one was fascinating. It is about like a real life art thief who is, still alive, a very contemporary art thief, I think mostly active in the 90s. But the way that this book is written, it's almost like fiction. Like, it is such a fascinating story and it is like written in such like an enthralling way. But like, what's different about this art thief is most art thieves are doing it for money, like to sell to whatever, and usually working with like organized crime. But this art thief was a little bit more brazen and he was collecting this art for himself. Like, he was just like stealing tons of stuff from museums and just keeping it in his house. And it is about the process of that, his relationship with his girlfriend who was helping him do this, and then he's also like living with his mom. Like, it goes all the way through like him doing a lot of these art thefts, as well as him eventually getting arrested, going to jail, whatever, which is like whenever the author gets in touch with him. And this author is like the only person who's like kind of gotten this access to him. The guy who it's about is French, and so he was like had a lot of access to European museums, and it's all over that region, but very, very interesting. If you like kind of like a very narrative nonfiction, I think this would be a good pick for you. And then my favorite book of the month was Half His Age by Jennette McCurdy. I had a strong feeling that I would get on well with this book. This type of like topic about, I don't know, student teacher relationships or age gap relationships, etc., is something that for whatever reason I find very cathartic to read about. Like, there's just something that helps me process things. Like, it's like nothing overly personal that I'm talking about, just like the motives behind these people. Like, it helps me process like motives that other people have had, if that makes sense. But this book is so different than a book that was very popular in My Dark Vanessa, which was more about a professor at a boarding school who had kind of like these like serial relationships with students, and about one of those like women processing under the Me Too movement about how there had been other girls whenever she had felt like she was the only one, and like her processing both her feelings towards that man, towards not feeling special, towards Me Too. Like, there's like a lot going on in that book that is so different from what's going on in this book, because first of all, it's just from the teen's point of view. Like, it's never like her in adulthood looking back on it, etc. But this book so much more is about like empathizing with someone who is not really the perfect victim, because this young girl, like, she is like troubled and very hurt, depressed, feeling empty, and she just decides that this teacher who is married and has an infant, that he is what she wants, and like she is the one who starts pursuing him, and he is hesitant at first but then gives in, and like how that relationship works, and so much about like how their relationship progresses, like what he gives to her, what she's getting from him, how fulfilling or unfulfilling it is in her kind of growing up through this story. that, I mean, she isn't the perfect victim in the way that My Dark Vanessa, you kind of see that it is a man who clearly has victimized girls in a very systematic way. And this is not that. Frequently, she is written as like enjoying the sex, which people seem to be upset with about how much sex there is in this book. But I think it makes it a powerful book in a different way, that you can empathize with her in a different way. And it doesn't make what the teacher did any more acceptable. It's a different way of looking at the power imbalance and how she was taken advantage of, despite the fact that it seems like she wanted it all. You know what I mean? And I feel like it gets more to how it actually is to be a teenager in some ways, and that she actually just like grows up during this and like can change her mind about certain things. And yeah, I think that people forget whenever they're writing about teenagers that if you're covering a year in their life or more, that they will change a lot, that they will change what they like and what they don't like and what they want and what seems cool and what doesn't, just because of the fact that they are in a rapidly maturing stage of life. So I thought this was fascinating, thought it was really well done. I loved the writing. This will probably, I know I said it wasn't like I had no 5 stars, but this was very close to it. I think that maybe the ending wasn't my favorite. I thought the ending could have had a little bit more punch to it, but yeah, this probably will end up in my top 10 of the year, even though it's not a 5 star, but we'll kind of have to, see how things fall. But yeah, very, very much enjoyed this. So those were the 9 books that I read in February. As far as my goals, goal to read physical books, I read 3 physical books this month. Nonfiction, I read 2 nonfiction this month. I did read some untrackable reading with some research articles about Lolita and Mimetic Desire. I was going to do a whole Half His Age book review. Maybe I'll still do it. I have all my notes, but that was about looking at desire as being something that is culturally created, that you know what you desire because you're seeing what other people are desiring, that it is like more of a collective action than an individual action. So something to maybe look forward to. Hopefully I will get to that. I forgot I was going to do that. And then 0 big books this month. That's fine. And then I have a goal to read Australian authors. This is an Australian book. Shailee Thompson is an Australian author. It is set in New York with an all-American cast, but you know what? We still celebrate Australian authors no matter what. And I feel like that's not part of the press at all. So I'm here to tell you. So anyway, what was the best book that you read in February? Did you have any Valentine's Day love themed reads? What was going on? And yeah, I will talk to you again soon. Bye.